Welcome back to another episode of Warren Cali. In this episode, I'm going to detail the story of Sylvia Nunn, aka Rambo. During the late 1950s, Sylvia's family would move to the east side of Compton, in an area that was middle class at the time, and a big upgrade for what many black people were used to in America. But the area they moved to would later be dominated by a Piru gang called the Looters Park Pirus. Sylvia was born to a middle class two-parent home. Her father, William Nunn, was a former boxer who taught Sylvia and the rest of her siblings how to fight and how to shoot guns early. These survival tactics would later prove useful in confrontation and gang-related situations that her and her siblings would later be a part of. William wanted his kids to be advanced in life, especially his daughters, but William couldn't save his kids for what they faced ahead. By 1973, William was convicted of a drug possession and sent to prison. And with William going to prison, this would change the dynamics of the Nunn household. With after a strong father in the household, the kids embarked on their own paths, and that would lead to the streets. And many gangs in Compton in the early 70s were starting to form or were already established. Several Crip and Piru sets would pop up all over Compton, and like I said before, the Nunn family lived in an area that would become the Looter Park Pirus. Sylvia's older brothers, like Marcus, aka China Dog, would be one of the earliest members of the Pirus and would build a deadly reputation in his community, and with his rivals as well. The Pirus became locked in a deadly war, where several surrounding Crips sets in the 70s, and traditional fighting style would go out the window, and shooting came into play. Being China Dog's little sister wasn't what Sylvia wanted to be known for. Her main thing was to prove that she was just as tough as her older brother Marcus. As a kid, Sylvia stayed in trouble. One day, Sylvia was asked by China Dog's homies to help rob a gas station. When they got to the gas station, the Pirus used their handles of the guns to break the window. They would then put Sylvia through the window and told the cashier to give us the money. Sylvia took all the money from the registers and gave it to the Pirus, but she also demanded her cut. The Pirus looked at her crazy, but she let them know then and there that she wasn't going for that. So the Pirus would give her a bunch of change as compensation for the robbery. Sylvia always stood out from the pack, and she wasn't like the other girls who took orders. She stood on her own too, and was a gangster at a young age.
She was the youngest girl that really hung out at the park. Being 9 to 10 years old, she had a pistol always packed on her.
China Dog became one of the early leaders of the Looter Park community, and one of the Piru's unofficial meeting spots would be the Nunn household. And once the Crips found out about that, they would start shooting up the Nunn household on a consistent basis, trying to kill China Dog. China Dog would even have the police on his trail for what he was doing in the streets, and they would come to the Nunn household looking to arrest him, which the police would get into it with their mother and threaten her. But Sylvia wasn't going for that, which her and the police would get into an altercation, which the police would ask her, "Who you think you are, Rambo?" And a name was born from then on. China Dog was later arrested and sent to youth authority for several years, but back on the streets, Sylvia was leaning more towards the street life. But with her older brother China Dog back on the streets after several years, and him going to his old gangster ways, he would be shot. China Dog was wounded, but somehow managed to survive the brutal attack from the Crips. Sylvia was 16 years old when she heard gunshots outside her house one day. She went outside, and she found her older brother China Dog with a crowd around him. He was just laying there in blood. This forever changed her. She was just a 16-year-old affiliated with the Pirus, but the shooting of her brother sparked a fuse in her, and all she wanted was revenge. Sylvia would go home and grab guns out the Nunn household. She would embark on a mission to kill Crips, the same gang that shot her brother. That day was the day that Sylvia became Rambo. Rambo became more than just a name. It became a lifestyle for her. Letting her gun blow for the first time at Crips, it became easy after doing it the first time.
Shooting a gun, shooting somebody, that first time. After that, it ain't hard to do. If you can get over it the first time, it's not nothing that you can't do again.
And a life of crime is what Sylvia chose from this point on. Her life would be dedicated to going on missions against the Crips, and after this point, she was one of the youngest females and a rare female toting guns and putting in work. The Pirus became Sylvia's extended family, and she would dress up as a male, wearing no makeup, no fingernails, no jewelry, and all black from head to toe, with a red flag underneath to go put in work against the Crips. She put in work like a job, and Sylvia's main job was to kill. After Sylvia finished her missions, she would jump right back in her car, take off all of her gang attire, and go back to being a woman. But as the 80s drug trade grew, and many gangsters became drug dealers, many gangsters also became addicted to drugs, and Sylvia would fall victim and begin using drugs. But that didn't affect her putting in work on her enemies, and instead, it made her even go harder.
When I was high on crack, it was easier for me to shoot you. It don't care. and probably laugh.
After several years in the streets, a warrant was out for Sylvia's arrest for several crimes. Now, there was much speculation on what happened with that. Some people stated she cooperated with the police, and many state it's just negative rumors created online against Sylvia because she still was allowed in her set and was often there. But after this was a turning point in her life, and she would get out of the gang lifestyle. Around the same time, Sylvia received a phone call from her mother who confirmed that her oldest brother was killed. Sylvia was on the road to recovery in all aspects in life and later moved to Las Vegas for a change. But her brother China Dog was all out for vengeance for their brother, and this led to him being arrested and serving time. Sylvia later got married and married a man named John. She would get into church and found God. She would later state, "I put Piru down and picked up Jesus." On June 12, 2008, Sylvia was featured on an episode of Gangland called From Girl to Gangster, which mainly focused on Crip and Blood females with their gang affiliation and their gang-related ties. The show was primarily centered around the life of Sylvia, and that's how many people from outside of Compton became aware of her. But unfortunately, on April 20th, 2010, Sylvia would pass away. Sylvia's sister Cynthia would make a non-profit organization located in the city of Compton in honor of her sister Sylvia. Sylvia's brother China Dog is now free, and her sister Cynthia still keeps Sylvia's name alive with the non-profit organization Sylvia's Angels. Sylvia may have started her life on a destructive path, but she finished her life going in the right direction and getting right with God. R.I.P. to her. This will conclude this episode. If you haven't already, check out my previous episodes. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.